It is the monarch that is the key to this, and the constitution that underpins the monarchy. We as a family see ourselves there as to support that role.
Something surprising has happened in the royal family. Princess Anne, who is always strong and honest, has found out something new about Queen Camilla. Many people think Camilla is just King Charles's caring wife, but this new discovery might change how everyone sees her. There are hidden secrets, quiet talks, and looks that mean more than they seem. This news might change the royal family forever. Is the royal family about to face another big change? Or has the real story been hiding all along? What Princess Anne recently discovered. Princess Anne has always been known for her honesty. She doesn't sugarcoat things, and she certainly doesn't play into unnecessary drama. But this time, what she has uncovered about Queen Camilla is something no one expected. It all started with a quiet conversation behind palace doors. Anne, who has spent decades watching the royal family from the inside, has always had her own thoughts about Camilla. But recent events have made her see something she hadn't noticed before. Camilla's growing influence over King Charles and, more importantly, over the monarchy itself. For years, people have debated Camilla's true role in the royal family. Some say she's simply standing beside Charles as a supportive wife, while others believe she has far more power than she lets on. Anne has now realized that Camilla is not just a queen by title. She's someone who is actively shaping decisions, policies, and even the future of the monarchy. The real shocker? Anne's sources say that Camilla has been making key decisions behind the scenes, decisions that might change the royal family forever. This isn't just about small things like royal engagements or public appearances. Camilla is said to be involved in conversations about the monarchy's structure, future roles, and even who holds power within the family. So how did Anne come to this realization? Well, it wasn't from a single moment. It was a pattern she noticed over time. She saw how Charles leaned on Camilla more than ever, how her opinions shaped his actions, and how other royals seemed to adjust their stance around her. It became clear that Camilla wasn't just playing the role of the dutiful wife. She was playing a much bigger game. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some may argue that Camilla is simply stepping up because Charles needs her. Others may feel uneasy about it, wondering if she's pushing her own agenda rather than serving the interests of the monarchy as a whole. Either way, this revelation changes how we see Camilla, and possibly how the world will see the royal family moving forward. How this changes everything for Camilla. Camilla's journey in the royal family has been anything but easy. From the early days of scandal and public scrutiny to finally being accepted as queen, she has fought a long battle to earn her place. But now, with Princess Anne's discovery, everything might take a turn once again. First, let's talk about public perception. Camilla has spent years trying to win the people's trust. Some have accepted her, while others still see her as the woman who came between Charles and Diana. But now, with this revelation, a big question arises. Is Camilla becoming too powerful? Some may admire her for stepping up and taking charge, but others might feel uncomfortable knowing she's pulling the strings behind the scenes. It's one thing to be a supportive queen consort, but it's another thing to be influencing major royal decisions. If people start seeing her as the one truly in control, it could lead to more criticism. The British public has always been protective of their monarchy, and if they feel that Camilla is overstepping her boundaries, it could spark serious backlash. Now, let's look at how this affects the royal family itself. King Charles has always trusted Camilla, but will this new attention on her influence make things difficult for him? If people, both inside and outside the palace, start questioning her power, it might put Charles in a tough position. Will he continue to rely on her completely, or will he be forced to change his approach to keep the monarchy stable? And what about the other royals? Anne, as someone who has always been fiercely loyal to the crown, might have concerns about this shift in power. She has always believed in duty above personal gain, so if she sees Camilla making major decisions, she might feel that it goes against the traditional ways of the monarchy. Royal experts are already weighing in on what this could mean. Some believe that Camilla's growing role is simply a natural progression, considering her decades-long journey with Charles. Others, however, think this could create tension within the family, especially among those who have always believed in a more traditional system. At the end of the day, this discovery makes one thing clear. Camilla is no longer just a background figure. She is playing an active, strategic role in the future of the monarchy, and that could change everything. The reaction, the royal family and public response. King Charles has always made it clear that he stands by Camilla. He fought for her acceptance, ensured she was given the title of queen, and continues to rely on her deeply. But how will he react to this sudden focus on her influence? If there's one thing Charles doesn't like, it's controversy surrounding his wife. He has spent years trying to reshape the narrative about Camilla, and any suggestion that she is controlling him could be damaging. Some believe he will stand by her no matter what, brushing off any concerns and continuing to let her play an active role. Others, however, think that if the pressure becomes too much, he might have to make some changes to reassure the public and the family. Then there's Prince William and Prince Harry. William has always had a careful approach when it comes to Camilla. While he respects her role in his father's life, he has never openly praised her influence. If this new revelation gains traction, William might feel the need to step up and assert more control over how the monarchy is managed. After all, he is next in line, and anything that affects public trust in the institution will eventually affect him. Harry, on the other hand, has been vocal about his dislike of Camilla. In his book, Spare, he made it clear that he sees her as someone who has played a major role in royal drama. If he catches wind of this, he might have more to say, potentially adding fuel to the fire and causing more division within the family. The public reaction is perhaps the most unpredictable part of all. Some people may feel a new sense of admiration for Camilla, seeing her as a strong and capable leader. Others, however, may not like the idea of her having such a strong hold over the monarchy. The British press will certainly have a field day with this, and depending on how the headlines play out, it could shape public opinion in either direction. What this means for the future of the monarchy. This revelation about Camilla's influence isn't just a small detail. It could have lasting effects on how the monarchy is perceived. If she continues to take on such an active role, will people start seeing her as more than just a queen consort? Will she be viewed as an actual force shaping the future of the royal family? One of the biggest questions is how this will affect Anne and Camilla's relationship moving forward. Anne has always been known for her traditional values, and if she feels that Camilla's influence is changing the monarchy too much, she might take a stand. Could this lead to tension between them? Or will they find a way to work together? And what about the monarchy itself? The royal family has been facing challenges from all directions: public scrutiny, internal conflicts, and shifting global perspectives. If people start seeing Camilla as the true power behind the throne, will this make the monarchy stronger? Or could it create more instability? No matter what happens next, one thing is certain. Camilla is no longer in the shadows. She is at the center of it all. And Princess Anne's discovery has only made that clearer. The question now is, how will the world react? And more importantly, how will the royal family handle this new reality?
You didn't believe she was dead?
For a long time. I just refused to accept that she was gone.
For decades, the world believed they knew the truth about Princess Diana's tragic death. A terrible car accident in Paris, caused by a drunk driver and pursuing paparazzi. The people's princess, taken too soon in a senseless tragedy. But now, a shocking revelation has turned that narrative upside down, leaving the British royal family and the entire world reeling. What could possibly be more devastating than the original tragedy? The truth behind what really happened that fateful night in Paris is more unimaginable than anyone could have suspected. The shocking revelation. On a rainy Tuesday morning in London, crowds gathered outside the Old Bailey, Britain's central criminal court, as rumors swirled about a secret trial that had been conducted behind closed doors. Security was unprecedented, with armed officers creating a perimeter around the building and all electronic devices banned from the proceedings. When the Lord Chief Justice emerged to address the waiting press, his face was ashen. "Today, I must deliver news of such gravity that it will forever alter our understanding of recent British history," he began, his voice wavering slightly. Following a trial conducted with the highest security protocols, evidence has been presented that has led to the conviction of a member of the royal family in connection with the death of Diana, Princess of Wales. The crowd fell silent as the impossible words hung in the air. The justice continued. Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, has been found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of his mother. The sentence is life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The world stood still. How could this possibly be true? Diana's youngest son, who had been just 12 years old when she died, convicted of orchestrating her murder. It defied comprehension. The evidence uncovered. As details emerged in the following days, the story became even more bizarre and disturbing. The case had begun unraveling 3 years earlier, when a former MI6 agent, terminally ill with pancreatic cancer, had come forward with a deathbed confession. He claimed to have knowledge of a long-term operation that had been hidden from all but the highest levels of British intelligence. According to recently declassified documents, the agent had provided investigators with encrypted files that contained surveillance recordings, financial transactions, and communication logs dating back to 1997. Most disturbing were a series of coded messages allegedly sent from a young Harry to unknown operatives in Paris in the weeks before Diana's death. Forensic accountants had traced a series of complex financial transactions through offshore accounts that appeared to link the young prince to payments made to several individuals who were in Paris the night Diana died. Computer experts testified that the encryption used in these communications matched protocols that would have only been known to someone with access to royal security briefings. Perhaps most damning was newly enhanced security footage from the Ritz Hotel in Paris that appeared to show Harry, disguised and wearing a prosthetic facial feature, meeting with Henri Paul, the driver who would later crash the car carrying Diana and Dodi Fayed. Facial recognition experts testified with 99.7% certainty that despite the disguise, the individual was Harry. The impossible timeline. But how could a 12-year-old boy possibly have orchestrated such a complex plot? This question dominated headlines worldwide as royal experts and criminal psychologists attempted to make sense of the conviction. The prosecution's case, portions of which were now being leaked to the press, presented a timeline that seemed impossible. They alleged that Harry, far from being the traumatized child the world had sympathized with, had been a calculating prodigy who harbored deep resentment toward his mother for her relationship with Dodi Fayed and her increasingly independent stance from the royal family. Psychologists brought in by the prosecution painted a picture of a disturbed child who, despite his youth, had access to resources and connections that most adults could never imagine. They claimed he had been diagnosed with a rare condition that accelerated cognitive development while dampening emotional and moral reasoning, essentially creating a child with the intellectual capabilities of an adult, but without fully developed empathy. The defense had vehemently rejected this characterization, bringing their own experts who testified that such a psychological profile was pure fiction, and that the prosecution's timeline was physically impossible. They pointed out that Harry had been at Balmoral Castle in Scotland with his father and brother when Diana died, a fact confirmed by numerous royal staff and security personnel. The royal family's response. As the details of the conviction became public, Buckingham Palace remained in lockdown. King Charles III, Harry's father, had reportedly collapsed upon hearing the verdict and was under medical supervision. Prince William, now heir to the throne, had cancelled all public appearances indefinitely. After 3 days of silence, the palace finally issued a brief statement. The royal family acknowledges the verdict delivered by the court. This is a time of profound shock and grief as we attempt to understand these disturbing allegations. We ask for privacy as we process these events and determine appropriate next steps. No further statements will be made at this time. The statement was notable for what it didn't say. There was no defense of Harry, no questioning of the verdict, no expression of support for the convicted prince. This omission led to immediate speculation that the royal family had prior knowledge of the investigation, or perhaps even believed in Harry's guilt. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, who had been in California with the couple's children during the secret trial, was reportedly under protection at an undisclosed location. Sources close to her claim she was utterly devastated and in complete disbelief, having had no knowledge of the trial until the verdict was announced. Public disbelief and conspiracy theories. The public reaction worldwide was one of stunned disbelief, followed quickly by skepticism. How could such a massive conspiracy have remained hidden for decades? How could a child have orchestrated such a complex plot? And why would Harry have wanted his beloved mother dead? Social media exploded with conspiracy theories, many suggesting that Harry was being framed, perhaps by elements within the royal family or British intelligence, who feared what might be revealed in his upcoming memoir. Others pointed to his recent estrangement from the royal family as potential motivation for a coordinated attack on his character and freedom. Supporters gathered outside Kensington Palace with signs reading "Free Harry" and "Truth for Diana." In the United States, where Harry had relocated in recent years, political figures called for international oversight of the case, questioning Britain's judicial process and the secrecy surrounding the trial. Prominent legal experts expressed grave concerns about the conviction. A secret trial, with evidence never subjected to public scrutiny, resulting in a verdict that defies logical timeline analysis. These are hallmarks of a judicial travesty, not justice, remarked one Harvard law professor. The confession that changed everything. Just as public opinion was coalescing around the belief that Harry had been framed, the case took another stunning turn. 1 week after the verdict was announced, Harry requested a television interview from his holding cell at an undisclosed maximum security facility. In a broadcast that would become the most watched television event in history, Harry appeared on screen looking haggard but composed. What followed was a 40-minute monologue that left viewers worldwide speechless. "The truth about my mother's death has been hidden for too long," he began. "While I maintain my innocence regarding the specific charges, there are aspects of that night that the world deserves to know." He then proceeded to outline a narrative so complex and disturbing that it challenged everything the public thought they knew about the royal family. He claimed that while he had not orchestrated his mother's death, he had discovered evidence years later suggesting involvement by other members of the royal family and British intelligence. According to Harry, his recent estrangement from royal duties and move to America had been motivated not by personal preference, but by his discovery of this evidence. "I couldn't continue to represent an institution that I believed was complicit in my mother's death," he stated. Most shocking was his assertion that he had been willing to accept conviction to protect his children. "There are forces at work that have made it clear to me that my children would be in danger if I revealed what I know," he said, his voice breaking. "This conviction, while based on fabricated evidence, serves their purpose of discrediting me while allowing me to protect those I love by maintaining certain secrets." He concluded with words that sent chills through viewers. "I say goodbye to freedom, knowing that someday the full truth will emerge. Until then, I accept this sentence as the price for my children's safety." The aftermath and unanswered questions. In the days following Harry's televised statement, the case became even more convoluted. Legal experts questioned how a defendant who maintained his innocence could be convicted in a fair trial. Intelligence analysts debated whether Harry's claims about threats to his children were credible or a desperate attempt to rationalize a legitimate conviction. The royal family remained silent, neither confirming nor denying Harry's implications of their involvement in Diana's death. This silence only fueled further speculation, with public opinion increasingly turning against the monarchy as questions mounted. Parliament convened an emergency session to discuss the constitutional implications of a convicted murderer in the line of succession, though far down the list. Legal scholars debated whether the conviction could be challenged in international courts, given the extraordinary nature of the secret trial. Meanwhile, Harry was transferred to an undisclosed prison facility, reportedly under constant surveillance to prevent any possibility of self-harm. Visitors were strictly prohibited, with even his legal team having limited access. The evidence disappears. 3 months after Harry's conviction, another shocking development occurred. The Ministry of Justice announced that the evidence used to convict Harry had been stolen during a sophisticated breach of government security systems. All digital records, including the enhanced security footage from the Ritz Hotel and the financial transaction records, had been completely wiped from government servers. The physical evidence, including original documents provided by the MI6 whistleblower, had disappeared from a supposedly impenetrable evidence vault. With the evidence gone, legal experts suggested that Harry's conviction should be overturned or at least reconsidered. However, the Lord Chief Justice issued a statement indicating that the verdict would stand as the evidence had been duly considered by the court before its disappearance. This extraordinary series of events only deepened public skepticism about the case. If the evidence was compelling enough to convict a royal prince of matricide, how could it have been so poorly protected? Was the theft a convenient way to prevent further scrutiny of potentially fabricated evidence? A nation divided, a family destroyed. As months passed, Britain found itself deeply divided. Polls showed that approximately half the population believed Harry was innocent and had been framed, while others accepted his guilt but questioned the circumstances surrounding his confession. A smaller percentage believed in his complete guilt and felt justice had been served for Diana. The monarchy's popularity plummeted to historic lows. King Charles, already advanced in age, appeared increasingly frail in his rare public appearances. There were whispers in political circles about the viability of the monarchy itself, with Republican sentiment growing stronger than at any time in modern British history. Prince William, now effectively the face of the monarchy's future, found himself in an impossible position, unable to defend his brother without potentially implicating his family in Diana's death, yet viewed with suspicion by a public that wondered about his own knowledge of the truth. Meghan and the children remained in the United States under tight security. Sources reported that all communication with Harry was monitored, with their children unable to have private conversations with their father. The documentary that shook the world. 1 year after Harry's conviction, a documentary was released simultaneously in multiple countries to avoid British legal injunctions. Titled The Prince's Tragedy, it featured interviews with former royal security personnel, intelligence officers, and forensic experts who systematically dismantled the timeline of the prosecution's case. Most compelling was testimony from Harry's former protection officers, who provided irrefutable evidence that he had been continuously under their supervision at Balmoral during the critical periods when he was allegedly in Paris. They risked prosecution themselves by revealing classified duty logs and security protocols that had previously been withheld from the defense. The documentary also introduced a facial recognition expert who demonstrated that the technology used to identify Harry in the Paris footage had been manipulated. Using the original algorithm rather than the modified version presented in court, the expert showed that the individual in the footage bore only a 23% similarity to Harry, far below the threshold for identification. Perhaps most damning was an interview with a former MI6 operations director who suggested that the entire case against Harry had been manufactured to prevent him from revealing what he had discovered about Diana's death. When a prince threatens to expose state secrets, conventional methods of silencing him are impossible, the intelligence veteran noted. Character assassination and false imprisonment become the only options. The final goodbye. 2 years into Harry's sentence, as legal challenges to his conviction gained momentum and public pressure for a retrial mounted, another shocking announcement came from the prison authorities. Prince Harry had been found dead in his cell, apparently by suicide. According to the brief official statement, he had left a note reading simply, "The truth dies with me. Keep them safe." No autopsy results were released, and his body was quickly cremated before independent examination could be arranged. Meghan released a statement questioning the suicide ruling and demanding an international investigation. But her voice was largely drowned out by the wave of memorials and retrospectives that followed Harry's death. The narrative quickly shifted from questions about his conviction to reflections on his troubled life. In a final twist that seemed to confirm the darkest suspicions, all pending legal challenges to Harry's conviction were administratively closed within days of his death. The judge who had been reviewing the appeal request recused himself without explanation and subsequently left the country. The legacy of doubt. Today, years after these extraordinary events, the truth about Princess Diana's death and her son's conviction remains obscured. The official record states that Harry was guilty of conspiring in his mother's murder and later took his own life in prison. But millions around the world remain convinced that this narrative conceals a far more disturbing reality. Annual vigils are held outside Buckingham Palace on the anniversary of both Diana's and Harry's deaths. Conspiracy theories continue to flourish, books and documentaries regularly revisit the case, and justice for Harry remains a rallying cry for those who believe in his innocence. The monarchy has never fully recovered from the scandal. While it continues to function, its mystique and public support have been permanently damaged. King Charles passed away not long after his son, with many attributing his decline to the stress of these events. William now reigns as a king forever shadowed by questions about his brother's fate and his own knowledge of the truth. Meghan and the children remain in America, where they live under assumed names, rarely seen in public. On the anniversary of Harry's death each year, an anonymous donor places lilies, Diana's favorite flower, on a bench in a London park with a card that reads simply, "The truth never dies. Only goodbye for now, not forever." For a public that once mourned a princess, then watched her sons grow up under the weight of that tragedy, the story's final chapter seems cruelly fitting. More questions than answers, more shadows than light, and a family destroyed by secrets that may never be fully revealed. On a bright summer morning at Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered for the ceremonial changing of the guard. This daily ritual had drawn tourists, photographers, and curious onlookers. Standing close by were Kate Middleton and Princess Charlotte, quietly enjoying the time-honored display. No one expected a single mishap to transform the day into an unforgettable event. But that's exactly what happened when a royal guard lost his iconic bearskin hat. In a flash, mother and daughter raced forward, and their spontaneous, heartfelt act soon became a worldwide sensation. Setting the stage, Buckingham Palace is synonymous with elegance, history, and pageantry, an iconic British landmark that draws people from all corners of the globe. On this particular morning, the sun was shining, and the air held a festive buzz. Tourists lined up behind designated ropes, cameras in hand, waiting for the daily changing of the guard. At one side of the courtyard, Kate Middleton and Princess Charlotte stood in matching light dresses, discreetly accompanied by a small security detail. Though Charlotte was still young, she had grown used to palace life and official duties. Yet she never lost her curiosity. Whenever she had the chance, she enjoyed gazing at the uniformed guards, marveling at their disciplined stances and striking attire. Indeed, the Queen's guards wore bright red jackets, polished black shoes, and of course, the breathtaking bearskin hats that towered above them. As the official ceremony began, the stirring sound of the military band echoed across the wide courtyard. Tall black boots snapped against the stone ground in unison. Even though it was choreographed, there remained a certain magic, an energy that blended tradition with artistry. Kate took note of a slight breeze that teased at her hair. She glanced at the rows of guards, making sure everything looked normal. She'd attended countless changing of the guard ceremonies, but she always appreciated the unwavering discipline these men exhibited. Their stoic expressions, the careful arrangement of their uniforms, and their measured steps all symbolized centuries of royal tradition. The crowd, too, was enthralled by the precision. Cameras clicked constantly. Parents lifted children onto their shoulders so they could see above the throng. Friends joked and pointed, while tour guides whispered bits of English history to their groups. The swirl of people and conversation only seemed to add to the ceremony's sense of regality. Right at the heart of this well-rehearsed event, the guard to the left edge of the formation was poised in perfect stillness. The fur of his bearskin hat gleamed under the sun's rays. In the next moment, though, the routine spectacle became unexpectedly real. A sudden gust of wind swept across the courtyard, powerful enough to flutter the flags overhead. That's when it happened. The guard's imposing hat slipped precariously to one side. Amused murmurs arose from those who noticed, but the guard tried to remain composed, desperate to right his hat without causing a disturbance. The more he attempted to correct its position, the more the hat slid askew. In a matter of seconds, almost in slow motion, the bearskin toppled from his head and landed with a gentle thud at his feet. The mishap. The impact of the guard's hat hitting the ground was subtle. No loud crash or dramatic noise, yet it carried an enormous ripple effect. People who had gathered near the front row of spectators immediately pointed, some whispering in surprise, others smiling in sympathy. Phones were lifted to snap pictures, and a few bystanders held their breath, unsure of what the guard would do next. At first, it seemed like the guard might simply bend down and retrieve his fallen bearskin. But palace protocol can be strict. Guards are trained to keep their composure, no matter what happens. He stared down at the tall black hat lying just inches away. For a moment, he didn't move, hoping a superior might handle the situation or that someone else would discreetly return the hat to him. Meanwhile, a hush fell over that section of the crowd. Traditional ceremony gave way to a personal, human moment. People realized they were witnessing an unplanned slip in a place where everything usually runs like clockwork. Even the band playing in the background couldn't distract from this minor drama. Standing off to the side, Kate Middleton noticed the situation quickly. She nudged Charlotte gently. The little princess craned her neck to see what had happened. Spotting the guard's lost hat, Charlotte's eyes widened in mild shock. She understood that guards rarely move out of formation, but also recognized that the poor man was in a predicament. At that exact moment, the guard bent slightly as though to grab the hat, yet he hesitated, standing back at attention. One of his fellow guards slowly stepped forward, but protocol seemed to keep him from assisting too much during the official routine. Time seemed to stretch in that awkward pause. Finally, Kate decided to step forward. Charlotte, following her mother's cue, reached out a small hand. Together, they moved to the low barrier that separated them from the courtyard. A staffer glanced at Kate, uncertain whether to intervene. But the Duchess of Cambridge had made up her mind. This was a simple act of kindness. In just a few steps, mother and daughter approached the guard, who looked visibly relieved. All around them, cameras began to flash more rapidly. Tourists realized something remarkable was about to happen. An unscripted, heartwarming moment involving the royals. Kate and Charlotte's reaction. As Kate arrived by the guard's side, she offered a kind smile. She understood that even a small deviation from the ceremony could be nerve-wracking for someone in service. She gently reassured him in a soft voice. "It's all right. You're doing well." Then, she stooped to pick up the fallen bearskin hat. The guard remained at attention, arms locked tight at his sides, though a hint of gratitude shone in his eyes. Princess Charlotte joined her mother, eyes fixed on the large hat. A wave of fascination seemed to pass over her as she studied it up close. The bearskin almost dwarfed her, and she had to handle it carefully to keep the fluffy material from brushing against the ground again. To her, it felt like entering a storybook scene, helping a royal guard in the middle of a centuries-old tradition. Kate, holding the hat, could see a faint flush of embarrassment on the guard's face. She spoke quietly, gesturing for him to lean slightly forward so she could place it back on his head without forcing him to break formation. He obliged, bowing just enough, and Kate positioned the hat carefully until it balanced perfectly on his crown once more. The small crowd erupted into murmured applause and approving laughs, relieved that the moment ended in kindness rather than tension. Charlotte broke into a tiny grin, her cheeks bright with excitement. This felt like a grand adventure to her, being able to help in a real-life situation, right there in Buckingham Palace's courtyard. She whispered something to Kate, possibly checking that they were all set, and Kate gave a gentle nod. With that, mother and daughter stepped back. The guard, still stoic out of duty, gave the subtlest nod of acknowledgement. Though guards rarely break their posture, the gratitude in his eyes said it all. Kate and Charlotte had taken a potential moment of humiliation for him and transformed it into an act of shared goodwill. The crowd's response and social media buzz. Right after Kate and Charlotte stepped away, a ripple of conversation passed through the bystanders. A middle-aged man in a baseball cap, clearly an American tourist, turned to his wife and exclaimed, "Did you see that? Kate just picked up his hat." Another visitor, phone raised high, shouted, "I got it on video!" Within seconds, pictures and videos were being shared across the globe, accompanied by captions such as "Royal Hat Rescue" or "Sweetest Moment at Buckingham Palace." On platforms like Instagram and Twitter, hashtags popped up: "Kate to the rescue," "Royal Guard hat," and "Princess Charlotte." The content spread like wildfire. Media outlets that specialized in royal coverage picked it up, praising the Duchess's and Princess's thoughtfulness. Morning talk shows replayed the clip with commentators describing how refreshing it was to see a moment of genuine compassion in a setting usually defined by tradition and protocol. What fueled the viral nature of this event was its simplicity. People love authenticity, especially from public figures. The internet lit up with comments, some saying they felt warmth from the small gesture, while others noted how it humanized both the guard and the royals. A user posted, "You can see how kind they are in that instant. No second thoughts. Just help." By early afternoon, major newspapers published short articles about the hat rescue. International headlines included phrases like, "Princess Charlotte joins Kate Middleton in adorable act," or "Mother-daughter duo saves the day at the palace." Internet memes also began circulating, featuring playful takes like the guard's hat superimposed in random comedic scenarios, referencing how quickly it fell and how swiftly the royals responded. Meanwhile, back at the palace, staff members watched as the global reaction ballooned to enormous proportions. For them, it was touching yet unsurprising. Kate had always been known for her empathy, and Charlotte was growing up with that same sense of compassion. Palace officials chose not to make a formal statement beyond a short comment acknowledging what happened, but they smiled at the world's enthusiastic response. The guard's perspective. A few days later, reporters managed to learn more about the guard. In a rare off-duty moment, he shared his side of the story with discreet humility. He confessed that the sudden gust of wind had caught him off guard, no pun intended, and that he'd tried to remain composed. In his training, he was taught that if something happens, he should stay in formation until instructed otherwise. However, seeing his hat roll away in front of hundreds of eyes turned the moment into a quiet personal crisis. He admitted feeling a surge of embarrassment when he realized how exposed he was. Guards pride themselves on their ability to maintain discipline, and dropping a piece of uniform felt like a personal failure. Then, in the midst of that swirling anxiety, he saw the Duchess of Cambridge and Princess Charlotte approaching with gentle smiles. He said that from his vantage point, it was like witnessing a wave of reassurance. When Kate picked up the hat, his first thought was gratitude. Gratitude that he wouldn't have to awkwardly break formation or fumble for it himself. Her warm expression and Charlotte's bright-eyed curiosity calmed his nerves. He struggled not to break protocol by speaking, but he managed a soft, "Thank you, ma'am," though it was barely audible to the surrounding crowd. The heartwarming aftermath. As the viral videos continued circulating online, it became clear this story was about more than a bearskin hat. It shone light on the idea that small deeds can have a broad-reaching impact. People from different countries and backgrounds shared the clip, leaving comments on how the moment reminded them to lend a helping hand whenever they could. Stories poured in of bystanders who had witnessed the event firsthand. One woman posted on a travel blog that seeing Kate and Charlotte help the guard reinforced her belief in the human side of public figures. Another visitor, a retired teacher, wrote that it reaffirmed her faith that even in formal ceremonies, people's genuine concern can come through. Back at Buckingham Palace, the guard remained on duty, proudly standing alongside his peers. He still wore his tall bearskin with renewed caution, more mindful of the wind. Though some teased him for famous hat troubles, no one doubted his dedication. They understood the unique pressures of performing in front of global audiences every day. The royal family, meanwhile, carried on with their schedule. Kate Middleton attended charitable events and continued her role as patron to various organizations. Princess Charlotte returned to her usual routines: school, family time, and the occasional public appearance. Though neither spoke publicly about the hat rescue, those close to them noticed a small sense of pride in Charlotte, as she'd been part of a moment that drew widespread admiration.